Hi, this is Robin. Welcome back. In the previous workflow demo, I transformed this same photo into a story of sadness or loneliness. Now, today we're going to take this exact same starting image in a completely different direction to create a feeling of happiness, joy, or anticipation. If you missed my concepts video, which was part one in this series, I'll include a link to it below because it explains the artistic principles behind the decisions that I'm making in these demo videos. This demo focuses entirely on building the look in Photoshop. So as I said, this demo number 2 will be how to build a story of happiness, joy, or anticipation. And as I've said, the first step I like to do before I approach making a visual story or developing a visual story is to decide on the emotional anchor or what I want the story to be. So for instance, when I think about this and looking at this image, which is a stock photo from Unsplash, I think, okay, she's in a long distance relationship. Her boyfriend is on the way to visit and he should be arriving soon. So that's what I have in the back of my mind as the kind of influence for the story that I want to develop here. Now, when I think about happiness and joy, I think it's suggesting warmer tones, brighter luminosity, more vibrant colors, and a lighter visual weight. The last one was kind of darker. So we're going to create a workflow for that happiness and joy kind of look in approximately 5 steps here. And then I may add a couple optional steps just if we want to take it beyond the base look. Okay, so step number 1 here will be to warm up the image. So this time I'm using a different approach than I did in demo number 1 in different workflows, so you get exposed to different tools in Photoshop. And I'm going to add a photo filter adjustment layer. So first thing we're going to do is duplicate this background layer. You can either left click and drag it to the bottom of the layers panel to the add new layer icon, or you can do a Control or Command J on that background layer to jump a copy up there. Okay, then you come to the bottom of the layers panel and we're going to look for the photo filter adjustment layer. And where are you? Here he is, right in the middle. Okay, left click on that. And now we have a photo filter adjustment layer and its associated properties panel. And if you're not familiar with my videos, my layers panel is on the top. Properties is at the bottom, and as you can see, I have my toolbar docked right. Okay, so with this photo filter active, I think I'm just going to work with the default one right here, and with the one that's highlighted, the warming filter number 85. Now you'll notice as we look in this properties panel that we can control the density. Right here, there's a slider. So just watch the image as I pull the slider. Okay, so it can either be more intense in terms of the warming or more subtle. So you take it to the degree that you want. I'm not giving you any formulas in any of these because I'm working with probably different images than you will be. So you just have to do it to taste, but I want to let you know the principles and how the tools work. So I'm going to keep this at a fairly low level for her. I want to warm her skin very subtly. Usually go up and then come back. Yeah, so that's getting a little yellow for me. I want to warm her skin very subtly, but I don't want it screaming yellow. I think some people are under the impression that if they made things bright yellow, it looks cinematic, and it just looks bright yellow. So we're not going to do that here. Okay, so we've got a little bit of more warmth infused into her. Step number 2 is to work on the luminosity in the image and create more of a boost of a glow. So what I want to do next is from the bottom of the layers panel, add an empty layer. So that's that add new layer icon, the box with the plus, and we have the empty layer. And I want to set this active layer to the screen blend mode. So right above it is where the blend modes are. If you click on that little down arrow, and anything in this box here lightens things. So I'm going to click on screen, We now have that assigned there, okay? And it'll brighten up what we do on this layer. So the next thing I want to do is be able to paint on this layer. So I'm going to use a brush tool from the toolbar. The brush tool is the one that looks like a paintbrush. So left click, activate that. Be sure the black is behind there. We want to use a soft brush. So for all of these tools, they all have their own what they call options across the top that are in this options bar, or their own settings. So if we come across and we look over here, we can see and click on that little down arrow, we see the different kinds of brushes that we can work with. And I want to be sure that we are working with a soft brush. So I will click on that. You can see the blue box highlighted there. And also it tells you it's soft because right up here, this is a hardness slider. So it's down at the very lowest setting. So it is soft. You can click on the options bar to close that. Okay, and then the next thing I want to do now that I have that set is to get a color to paint with. So again, bottom of the toolbar, we're coming to the color picker, and I'm going to work with the foreground color. The one in the front is the foreground. That's the background. So we're going to click on that and we open our color picker. And I want to work with kind of a soft, warm orange. I want to enhance what we have here. So as you can see, there's a spectrum of colors here. So you can either click on one of these little handles and pull it up till you start seeing oranges, and that's in that category there. I happen to know a hex number that I like. So you can see this hashtag here. You can enter a hex number if you have one that you know that you like. So I'm going to enter, hopefully this will work, F8C 292. Yeah, so that's a nice soft kind of an orange right there. And you can see once you get your position, and if you get a color like that, you can always make it more saturated by pulling to the right, less saturated to the left, lighter at the top, darker towards the bottom. But this is the color we're working with right here. So once you get your color, click OK. Okay, and now I want to paint with a low opacity. So since we're using the brush tool, we're going to go to the settings on the options bar for the brush tool, and I want to put this on a low opacity so we don't paint intense orange over here. So you can either click on that little down arrow and use the slider, or just use it like a scrubby and left click on the word opacity and just slide it down. And I want to go pretty low, so maybe around 10%. Yeah, that 10%. Okay, so that sounds good. Because, yeah, I just want it to be a hint of this. So now I'm going to use the brush, and the green is my highlighter, so you can see where I am. The white in the center is my brush size. And I want to make this a little bit bigger to paint with. So I am going to use the right bracket key, so it doesn't take us forever to paint. And I'm just tapping the right bracket key. Maybe I'll make that just a little bit smaller. Okay, and I'm just going to paint around the edges of her and on the edges of the window so it looks like the brightness of the day is reflecting on the glass as it shines in on her. Let's see, yeah, so you could see, and actually that could maybe even come down just a little bit more. I can paint over her a little bit too because the light is coming in the window. Soften her up a little bit. Get a little dreamier or anticipatory. This is kind of cool colors over here, so we can warm that up a little bit too. Okay, so I've painted around the glass, and it gives the impression that this nice light, bright outdoor light is reflecting off of all this grunge and grime on her urban window. All right, so step number 3 then is to add some more vibrance. And by the way, so I'm just going to put this back to neutral. I click D and that's the default, and I'm just, my neutral tool, I put it on the last, so you don't have to do this, but it's sort of like resetting my camera. I know where I am if I go back to neutral. Okay, and one thing I should do, speaking of that, because the settings are sticky, I'm going to put my opacity back 100%. So when I go to use it again, I don't wonder why it's not painting. Okay, so step number 3 is to add a vibrance adjustment layer. So bottom of the layers panel, add new adjustment layer, and they've changed where things are. Here we go, color and vibrance. So that's the first one now. So we've got a color and vibrance adjustment layer, and these are the properties that we can work with. And I want to enhance the color here, but whatever you do, do not work with saturation. Saturation mutates colors. So work with vibrance. It's going to be subtle, more subtle. If you go too extreme with it, it can get crazy too. So again, I just slide this to taste. Just do whatever feels right for your image. I can't give you a formula. Brighten it up and give it a feeling of joy, happiness. Do a little at a time, and then I release it. That brightened it up. Okay, so again, we're not looking to scream. We want subtle here. All right, step number 4. What I want to do is add a little bit of more softness and open things up. So add a little bit of haze and open up the shadows a little bit. So step number 4, I'm going to add a curves adjustment layer. Bottom of the layers panel, add new adjustment layer. There's curves in that second box. Left click on that. We've got our curves layer added, and associated with that in the properties panel for the curves layer is the curve that goes from black to white and the black point to the white point. And you can see as you go this way, you're getting whiter. As you go this way, you're getting whiter. So if we want to lift or make something lighter, we go up. So I want to gently lift the mid-tone shadows. So I'm going to come to the center of the curve, click there, and I'm just going to, and again, I have to watch the image to see what this does. I'm just going to slowly start lifting, see where I want this. That might be a little bit, that's all right there. Okay, I'm going to stop there. So I've lifted the mid-tone shadows by doing that. So next, I want to lift a little bit of the darkest shadows because I want to have a little softer light and a bit of haze there. So again, I'm going to lift the blacks by going to the black point at the lower left and slowly lifting that up. And again, I don't want it to look like our apartment is smoggy. I just want to lift it. So maybe I'll just go part way. So I've only gone like half of a grid line there on that. Okay, the next step is I want to do some cleanup on the distractions. So I'm going to add an empty layer from the bottom of the layers panel, add new layer. That's the box with the plus. There we go. And then this is going to be what I always call cleanups, getting rid of distractions. And I use the remove tool to do that. I like to do it on an empty layer because then if I need to mask something away, I can do it versus doing it on a direct content layer. All right, so we're going to use the remove tool from the toolbar. Come down, that's the Band-Aid with the little sparkles next to it. So click on that, be sure it's got black on it. We're on the active layer. And again, the black in the center of my highlighter there is the size of the remove tool brush. So I'm just trying to get rid of distractions here. So I'm going to make that a little bit bigger than this orange bokeh. Make it a little smaller. And just click on that with the remove tool. Wait for Photoshop to do its thing. Go. And I'll get rid of this one. Anything that's pulling attention from her is what I want to get rid of here. I'll use the left bracket key and make that move tool a little smaller. because that's going to pull attention out of the frame. This is going to, something like this is going to catch somebody's eye because it's bright. It'll pull attention away from her. So I'll make the brush a little smaller and just click that once. I don't want to get rid of all of the grime because it helps the mood, and you know she's in the apartment and behind glass. But some of these things are just too much, and I think they distract from her. And I want the focus on her and her expression. I don't want it on a lot of window grime. I change tools. Okay, and this is too much of a pattern. And these, so look, you have to look at things in leading lines. And to me, this is a leading line, and it's leading away from her. So I want to get rid of those. I think that's enough of that there. Let me just zoom in a little bit and see. Yeah, so there's some things on her face too that I think would be better get rid of. So I'll use the left bracket key and get rid of some of these. There's a little bit of grime from the window that's right where her nose is. And I think I could stand to get rid of this behind her hair. Yeah. Okay, I think that's probably good enough. You get the idea. I mean, because again, this isn't your image, but you can use the remove tool to do some cleanups and get rid of some basic distractions in your scene that'll take away from your subject and what you want the attention drawn to. So for all intents and purposes, that step number 5 could be the end. I mean, we have gone from the original look, something that, you know, gives a much more optimistic, happy, anticipatory kind of a story to it. But I like to kind of keep going and showing you some other optional things that you can do if you want to. So you could stop there, but let's keep going and do 2 more optional steps. So I'll add a stamp layer next. Bottom of the layers panel, add new layer icon, the box with the plus, and then we'll use what's called the claw maneuver. You simultaneously press and hold Shift, Control, or Command, Alt or Option, and E, and wait, and then that makes a merge of everything, all these layers that have come before onto one layer without collapsing them. I'll just label this so you know what that is. Okay, so now optional step number 6 is working with her facial expression. And again, this would definitely be optional if you're working with a model and you're shooting knowing you want to create a story, and you at least, you know, get the expressions and whatever from her or him or whoever, and then you just do some of these other ambience, I guess is the right word to say it, adjustments to build the story when you're back in Photoshop again. So to adjust her expression, I want to use the liquify tool. So first we're going to convert this stamp layer to a smart object. Come over into the empty area on the right of that layer, right click, convert to smart object. Wait, and now you have that little icon that tells you it's a smart object. Go to the top of the interface. We're going to go to Filter and come down to Liquify. Left click. All right, now we are in the Liquify interface. There's a set of tools over here that you could use if you wanted to manually adjust expressions or fix a piece of hair or do things like that. But we're going to stay over here in the Face Aware Liquify. So first of all, you know, this is kind of an ambiguous expression, and I think we want to make her a little happier looking, since this is happiness, joy, anticipation. So first, let's just start with the mouth settings that we can do and work with smile. And I want to start increasing her smile a little bit. I don't want to go too crazy, but we want to get the edges her mouth turned up so she looks like she's happy. Just have to keep watching it so it doesn't go too nuts. I think that's close enough. All right, and then maybe make her mouth a little wider. Let's see how that works. You can see it's making it wider if I go up more, but I don't want to do it again too much. The point is not to totally make it not her. It's just to very micro improve the mood. All right, let's see what happens if we work with her upper lip here a little bit. So let me just show you. Yeah, see how you can do that. Don't want it, again, look sneery or anything, but I want to just go up a little bit. All right, let me leave that there. And then the lower lip, I don't know if that'll, oh yeah, see what that does? Okay. Very subtle on this. I'll just make it a 1. Okay. And then the mouth height, see what that does. Oh yeah, so that opens her mouth a little bit. So all right, yeah, so this sort of looks like she's going, oh, maybe she sees him, okay? He's coming down the sidewalk. All right, and next let's look at the eyes. So again, it's sort of neutral, so maybe we can tilt them again to a more happier, the eye is up in anticipation kind of thing. So her left eye, her right eye, camera left eye, is really not too visible, so I'm not going to work with that. When you look at the eyes settings, this is for the left eye in that column, this is for the right eye in this column. So for the tilt, see what we want to do here. Oh yeah, so that's not super tense, so I think I can tilt that up. I think you can almost go to 100 on that. All right, so I'll leave that there. And then on the width, see what that does. All right, see what it's doing? It's making your eyes, so if her eyes are a little wider, I think it gives a feeling of anticipation and joy. She's feeling good. Okay. And then what about eye distance? Because when it's in closer, that looks like you're kind of concentrating and maybe knitting your brow. So let's see if this opens it up with, this helps if you hit the, yeah, see, yeah. So if it's closer together, it could, you can use that if you want to go more sneaky or, scared or something like that. She's open and happy. So that's probably good there. All right, so let me leave those in that position. So I think that is enough on the facial. So let's just see if it made any difference. So bottom of this panel, I always keep preview turned on. That's what the check mark is. If we turn it off and on, yeah, see, you can see it's not intended to scream. It's just a subtle change. All right, so I'll click OK to accept those changes. So now we have that. And again, when you have the smart object here, you get a mask as a sublayer after you've made your adjustments. And then you also get the liquefy setting. So if you left double click on that, it relaunches. So if you want to make some modifications, you can. You don't have to start over. So I'll just hit cancel because I'm not going to modify it. All right, and then the final optional step that I wanted to show you is to add some additional ambient light here so that we have more brightness and coming in and it's a happy mood outdoors as well as in. So I'm going to add an empty layer, bottom of the layers panel, add new layer icon. That's the box with the plus right there. And I want to fill this with black. So go to the top of the interface to edit at the upper left, come down to fill, get the fill dialog. I want to fill it with black, click OK. And now that's completely hidden, okay? Now what I want to do is lower the layer opacity a little bit so I can see what's going on here. Okay, and now what I want to do is add a lens flare over in this area. So, and we're still working on that same layer. So we'll go to the top of the interface to the filter menu, come down to render, and fly out to lens flare. So filter, render, lens flare, click. And now we have the lens flare dialog box. And again, you can see that we have various different types of lenses and we can control the brightness. So here is a flare looks like for 50 to 300 millimeter zoom. There's a 35 millimeter prime. Here's a 105 millimeter prime. So I'm going to go with that because I think that would be the best for the sun coming in. And then as you see here, you can also adjust the brightness. So you can go, if it hit it, super bright or very subtle. So you just do it to whatever level of brightness that you want. And I don't want it to look like it's the apocalypse, but I do want some brightness. I want to get enough of a halo around that it looks like something. I want to split the difference here. Okay, I think that is good enough. And then you can also click on here. And so once you click on your lens flare, you can reposition it to where you want in the scene. So I think I'm going to put mine just slightly out of frame. So it's almost just sort of out of frame here for her. Let's do that. There we go. It's like that. Okay. And now, I mean, this isn't good because we've added all this haze, but you have to, by the way, you have to work with lens flares on a layer like that. You can't put them just on an empty layer. All right. And so what I want to do is add a screen blend mode so that all that black goes away. So where it says normal, those are the blend modes. Come down to screen and click on that. And that hides all the black and just leaves the flare. And if you want, you can then, so I had lowered the opacity just to see where we were in the image. But if you want, you can then adjust the opacity back to whatever level of brightness that you want. I think that's probably good right there. So I'll just leave that close to 80% or just under 80%. So now we have gone from our original starting image like that, which I think is just sort of ambiguous, to a visual story that I hope tells more a story of happiness, anticipation, optimism, and, working with the same image that we've been using all along here in parts 1 and part 2, and now here in part 3. Yet we've ended up with an image that communicates something completely different than the previous workflow that we did on sadness and loneliness. Okay. In the final Photoshop demo that we're going to work on, we'll push things in the complete opposite direction from this. So we're going to work on creating a scene of fear, tension, or paranoia, and we'll be using a lot of the same visual storytelling principles that I covered in part 1 video. In case you haven't seen it, I'll put the link down below in the description, but we're just applying them very differently. So what we're doing here is taking one photo and building or telling 3 stories with that same photo. So I'll see you in the next video. Take care.